The story begins at the Ohio State Fair in Columbus and introduces Parker, a skillful burglar with an English accent. Parker, accompanied by a group of prominent criminals, intends to carry out a heist at the carnival. In disguise as a preacher, he creates a distraction by penetrating the security office and enables clowns to ambush guards. Meanwhile, the crooks, including Hardwick of the Chicago mob, plan to steal the fair's huge earnings. While they keep the staff hostage and start a controlled fire, the unsuspecting crowd continues to enjoy the festivities. In the middle of the pandemonium, one of the captives had a panic attack, leading Parker to assure him that no one would be harmed. In flashbacks, Hurley, an elderly criminal and Claire's father, suggests Parker join the heist. Despite Claire's impression that they barely know each other, Parker has been working for Hurley for years, building a close bond between the two. Hurley has provided Parker with critical resources, including clown gang members under Melinda's criminal supervision. As the fire grows from controlled to huge, causing widespread panic, the robbers grab the moment. With almost $1 million, they take advantage of the commotion and escape the scene. Carlson, posing as the fire chief, assists them in departing the area smoothly. Hardwick and Parker meet in an abandoned industrial location, and the latter accuses him of deviating from the original plan. While spying on firefighters changing in a tent, Hardwick spent time arriving to the appropriate area, resulting in the fire being started in the wrong location, near the propane tank depot rather than behind the cattle pavilion. This increased the public threat and accelerated the investigation. The rest of the company arrives, and everyone piles into a car. Driving down a desolate road, the leader, impressed by Parker's skills, recommends another robbery, this time with a potential $75 million payout. Parker, on the other hand, flatly refuses, preferring his $200,000 and a clean break from the unlawful enterprise. Everyone prepares to eliminate Parker as part of a predetermined plot because he has refused to engage in the upcoming robbery. Parker, realizing the danger, quickly injures Carlson before leaping out of the car after being shot by Melinda. The gang boss orders Hardwick to end him for good. Hardwick exits the truck, shoots Parker, and tosses him into a pond, and the bandits depart. Shortly after, a farmer passing with his family along the road notices blood and finds the Parker in the pond. Parker somehow survives and obtains medical care at the local hospital. When he wakes up in a hospital bed, he hears from the news that a terrible fire has occurred at an amusement park, with the thieves still at large and unwilling to wait for police questioning outside the hospital. Parker leaves with a patient after putting a doctor to sleep and stealing his clothes. Outside, he takes over an ambulance and drives away. After recovering from his injuries in the van, Parker decides to pursue the group responsible for his betrayal and take them down individually. Following a relatively successful recovery, he sneaks into a hunter's motel room and steals clothing, a multi-tool, an electric razor, and an additional handgun. Parker drives to a check-cashing center in Memphis after stealing someone else's car. He holds a prisoner and enters the center to commit an armed robbery, requiring money to work on a new identity and obtain fake documents. Parker later travels to Houston, Texas, and asserts his relationship with Bob Hurley. He hires a print shop owner to create new documents for him and pays him well. While waiting for the fake documents, Parker calls Hurley to inquire about the whereabouts of Hardwick's brother. Parker remains steadfast despite Hurley's attempts to persuade him, warning about the dangers of going against such dangerous people. Parker persisted in obtaining the address, and Hurley revealed the tavern where Hardwick's brother works. Parker quickly travels to New Orleans, enters the bar, challenges the security guards, and eventually locates Hardwick's brother, who owns 5 clubs on Bourbon Street. Hardwick's brother reveals that Melinda and his gang are on Palm Beach, an island within a metropolis populated by billionaires and multimillionaires. Parker immediately contacts Claire and her father, advising them to embark on a trip, aware that his foes may use his loved ones to approach him. Simultaneously, the story moves to Florida, introducing Leslie Rogers, a real estate agent. Meanwhile, the criminals are planning their next robbery. Hardwick discovers from her brother that Parker is still alive. When Melinda learns this, he becomes enraged and nearly shoots him. Ross interrupts, arguing that the plot will fail if they sacrifice one of their own. In return, Melander directs Hardwick to contact his influential uncle, Mr. Danziger, in Chicago, and hire a hitman to kill Parker. Danziger sends his top hitman, Kroll, to track down Parker. The hitman begins his pursuit by infiltrating Claire's home with the purpose of snatching her before approaching Parker. As Claire prepares to go for vacation, she notices an unusual noise in the house. She cleverly slips out via a window, punctures the hitman's car tire, and successfully eludes him in the vehicle. Claire, in despair, contacts her lover to inform him about the hitman's incursion. Parker urges her to go to a fishing camp in Florida and stay there until Friday. When Parker returns to Houston to acquire the new records, he finds 3 of Danziger's subordinates comatose on the floor, monitored by Norte and his aide Ernesto. When requested to join the prostrate group, Parker shoots Ernesto in both legs, revealing his betrayal of Norte as he worked for Danziger. Parker seizes his papers and coerces Norte into executing the 3 men sent by Danziger. Faced with no other options, Norte shoots the 3 guys with his handgun, leaving his fingerprints behind. Parker then meets with Hurley, who reveals that Danziger reached out to him, leaving Parker his portion of the prior heist tensions. Recognizing the deception, Parker realizes that a Chicago mob leader would never offer money to someone who was impeding their ambitions. Parker refuses the money, determined to defend his ideals and seek justice against the criminals involved. In order to accomplish this, he travels to Florida under the alias Daniel Parmet, posing as a Texan and supposedly looking to buy a house. In this unusual home-buying venture, he is assisted by the familiar Leslie Rogers. However, before finalizing the home purchase, he decides to pay Claire a visit. Parker advises breaking their connection during their set meeting in order to protect her life. Parker, on property exploration with a real estate agent, walks by luxurious mansions with disinterest until coming to a stop in front of a humble house purchased by Mr. Rodrigo 2 months previously for $1.2 million. It dawns on him that this is the place where Melander's crew plans to hide out after their heist. Leslie invites Parker to lunch to stay in touch, but Parker declines due to his hectic schedule. Leslie, interested in the possible client's situation, makes research on his bank account one evening and discovers no transactions, which perplexes her. Later, a notification that her car has been repossessed adds to her frustration, as she is already dealing with a mountain of loans from her adulterous ex-husband. Simultaneously, hitman Kroll executes Norte after mistaking him for Parker's collaborator. As the sun sets, Parker returns to the home of the fictitious Mr. Rodrigo and discovers their stockpile of weaponry. He meticulously installs traps and analyzes their heist plan. Upon returning to his vehicle, he meets Leslie, who suggests a private talk. Parker, skeptical of her motives, responds forcefully. She reveals that based on her findings, his identity is not as it appears. Arriving at the abandoned office of the real estate agency where Leslie works overnight, she complains about her situation and offers to work for him in exchange for a percentage of the profits. Instead of replying directly, Parker tells her to undress to confirm she is not wired. Once confirmed, he agrees to consider her request. The next day, Parker contacts Leslie and offers his support in the mission in exchange for a percentage of the revenues, to which she agrees. Parker outlines Melander's gang's detailed strategy and the possible profit, which is $57 million if carried out successfully. Leslie grows furious when he explains that they intend to rob the diamond auction hosted by local socialite Miriam Hop Clinton. Although she considers it a perilous enterprise with a high possibility of detection, she has already committed to it. Melander and his crew arrive at the back gate of Mrs. Clinton's sprawling estate, the planned venue for the upcoming auction. Melander and his colleagues wear blue jumpsuits mimicking those worn by a company that specializes in technical support for public events. Parker then leaves Leslie to hail a cab to her office before heading to his hotel room, where he encounters Kroll. A heated struggle ensues. Parker leaves the bathroom, assuming Kroll is incapacitated. only to be ambushed from behind moments later. Despite the attempt to stab him, Parker retaliates by flinging Crow from the 26th floor balcony. Despite horrific injuries, Parker survives. At Leslie's house, a local cop questions her about her client Parker. She observes bloodstains on the floor and tries to distract the policeman's attention. Parker instructs her to use a pay phone to contact Claire. Claire, unable to risk a hospital visit, arrives to treat Parker's injuries and declares her refusal to leave him. Meanwhile, Parker's rivals prepare for an upcoming heist. Hardwick predicts the auction and remotely activates the pyrotechnic systems placed in the speakers by Ross. Melander and 2 accomplices masked as firefighters drive to the mansion in a fire engine to take the gems. In response, the police close all 3 drawbridges connecting Palm Beach town to the mainland. They guard the marina and close the roads. While Hardwick distracts the police with a motorboat, Melander and his companions, outfitted with wetsuits and diving gear, dive into the lagoon and return home. Parker hides behind walls while waiting for their return, armed with 2 pistols. In this scenario, Hardwick arrests Leslie after discovering her on the window. Melander sends his men to search the house because he suspects Parker may be present. Parker skillfully eliminates Ross in silence, forcing Melander to direct Hardwick to pursue Parker while Carlson stays with Leslie. Melander finds Parker and attempts to shoot him in the back, but his gun was already jammed. This leads to a confrontation, in which Parker kills Melander. Leslie simultaneously shoots Carlson with a concealed gun under the table. Hardwick threatens Leslie with a gun and demands Parker put down his. However, when he pulls the trigger, it is clear that the gun is defective. Parker delivers a direct hit to Hardwick's forehead. Parker eventually leaves Leslie, directing her to store the gems in an air conditioning duct and promising to collect them after 3 months. Half a year later, Parker finds and eliminates Danziger. A year later, Leslie receives her $24 million in 2 cardboard boxes by express mail. In the final scene, Parker helps the farmer who once saved him. The elderly man begins to consider the possibility that Parker is not just a man, but an angel.